Devotees, good morning from Sridham Mayapur. My name is Madhavananda Das, and this is our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, before we begin, we'd like to offer a little prayer. Gora Braganya Gana Gocha Goloruharam Goranga Gudachama Gopyara Kopa Bhiksham Palagada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramshchavandarotamam Divyam Sarasatyam Vyasam Tato Jayam Dirayet Vedi Ramayane Shaiva Purane Vadate Tata Adavande Chamadye Chahari Sarvatra Giyate Mukam Karodi Vachalam Gam Gayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigurum Taranam Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Harinka Name Vanda Vela Parikori Ve Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Moteu Dada Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees. Welcome to our daily adventure in Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from the third canto, chapter 29, which is spoken by Lord Kapila Dev to Mother Devahuti, text 11 to 12. Madguna Shuti Matrena Mayi Sarva Guhasaye Manogatira Vichina Yata Dandamba Sombudo Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hidaritam Vahoityavalitayama Bhakti Purushottamhe. Quote, the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganga flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows toward the Supreme Lord. Reading from Srila Prabhupada's purport, the basic principle of this unadulterated, pure devotional service is love of Godhead. Madguna Shruti Matrena means, quote, just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, end quote, these qualities are called nirguna. The Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature, therefore he is attractive to the pure devotee. There is no need to practice meditation to attain such attraction. The pure devotee is already in the transcendental stage, and the affinity between him and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is natural and is compared to the Ganga water flowing towards the sea. Panchakalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhubhya cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this morning we'd like to speak something. We want to continue speaking about the symptoms of Suddha Bhakti, or pure devotion, and about the one-pointed focus of the gopīs of Vrindavan and Srimati Radharani as the topmost and true examples of Suddha Bhakti, or pure devotion. And today we'd like to focus on a story which appears in a number of different literatures about Krishna when he once played a joke on the gopīs and manifested the form of four-armed Narayan at the rāsa-līlā, the place known as Chandra Sarovara in the Govardhan. And we'd like to speak something about the esoteric connection between that place and Jagannath Puri. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport here, he says the basic principle of this unadulterated, pure devotional service is love of Godhead. So again, the greatest example of that love of God is the gopīs of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada says in the purport again, the Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature, therefore he is attractive to the pure devotee. So implicit in this is an understanding, as we've been speaking about in the last few sessions, that different devotees will be attracted by different forms of the Lord. And in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, it's stated, Tad Vapu Pranayase Sadanugrahai, that the particular form that the devotees want to see, the Lord manifests that form before them. And I'm just reviewing a little bit, and in regards to that, we spoke about how that love can never be obstructed by anything else. It can't be stopped by the COVID virus. It can't be stopped by any revolution or the police or any suffering or anything in this material world. We spoke something about the focus of Srimati Radharani on Krishna in session number 10. And we told a couple stories. One from Ujjwal Nilamani, how Srimati Radharani once at Barsana was standing on the hill on some very extremely sharp and hot rocks in the middle of the day, and she was looking at Krishna. And in spite of those hot rocks, which are very sharp, she was unconscious of them and unbothered by them, because Jiva Goswami in his commentary says, because her feet were soft like cotton, and she was unbothered by the heat of the sun. And in our last session, we spoke something about one great devotee in Rajasthan, whose name is Umbatayani, and how she gave up her own husband and gave up her family, her father, to do one-pointed devotion to Krishna. And we spoke something from Srila Prabhupada, how Prabhupada said we should not boycott the gopīs. Gopīs are very important. And we quoted some verses from Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya-lila chapter 8, wherein Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that only the gopīs are able, they have the adhikar, the qualification to appreciate the transcendental pastimes of Radha and Krishna, and only from those gopīs can those pastimes be expanded. And he says that Saki Vina E Lila Pushta Nahi Hoy. Without the gopīs, those pastimes can't be nourished. Saki Lila Vishtariya Saki Asvadoy, Prabhupada says that only by their cooperation are such pastimes broadcast. It is their business, Saki Asvadaya, to taste this mellow. So we've been speaking primarily in our discussion about these verses 11 to 12 of this chapter about the importance of ruchi, or taste, And yesterday, last session, we spoke about how Srimati Radharani is the embodiment of that taste. And we gave some example from Srila Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhav, and how when Srimati Radharani on one occasion, she had apparently gone to Dwarka, that's another discussion, but she'd apparently gone there, and she was unattracted to the form of Dwarkadish. Even though everybody was telling her this is the same as Vrindavan Krishna, no, it's not my Krishna with a peacock feather. I want my Krishna. And this is the nature of this love, which is so one-pointed and so fixed. And so today I'd like to begin speaking something from a few different literatures about a very mysterious story. This is something which this is something which is very personal for me, because it was the last instruction my Guru Maharaj gave me just about 2 days before he left this world in the airport in Kolkata, when I was waiting to greet him. We were working on a magazine about Amarnath, and I'd found some very interesting things in my research. And Guru Maharaj, I looked up from my computer, and there was Guru Maharaj. Oh, Guru Maharaj, I told him we'd found this and this, and he said, yes, you print this. So that was one of his last instructions. We should make a magazine about this Amarnath. And so we did that some years ago. And I'd like to relate to you a story an article that we printed in there. The beginning, I want to start with a conversation which appears in Srila Kavi Karnapur's Chaitanya Chandradoya Natakam. Kavi Karnapur was the beloved son of Srila Shivananda Singh, and he grew up loving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As a little baby, Mahaprabhu put his toe in the baby's mouth, and he began to suck on it. It doesn't get any better than that. And Kavi Karnapur, he's one of the great poets in Krishna consciousness and our movement. And he wrote a wonderful play called the Chaitanya Chandradoya Natakam, in which he speaks about the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in Act 1, there's a conversation between Advaita Acharya and Bhagavan, one devotee named Bhagavan. And this Advaita says he heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had rejected the devotee Mukunda. And this pastime is told in many different literatures. I won't go into it deeply, but Mukunda, Mahaprabhu became angry with him. And so Advaita Acharya is asking, Mukundena kim aparadham? What did he do? And the devotee Bhagavan, he says, Aunena niruchate ruchate hi bhagavatas chatur bhuj rupa eva tad evopashyam. He says that as he himself has admitted, he has ruchi hi bhagavatas chatur bhuja rupa. He has ruchi, he's attracted to the Lord's forearm form. And he's been worshiping that forearm form of the Lord. So now we've been speaking about ruchi and the nature of pure bhakti, how that ruchi is very, very important and how it's inherent within that pure bhakti. And then in continuing the crooked course of our discussion on the journey, we came to the point of discussing about how different devotees will have different types of ruchi, and then how Srimati Radharani has very one-pointed ruchi. So Bhagavan, this devotee, says, well, the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected him is because he's attracted, he has this ruchi for the forearm form of the Lord. It's Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's name is Bhagavan Das. But this devotee, Mukunda, was attracted to the Chaturbhuj Narayan Rup, or the forearm form of Lord Narayan. So Advaita Acharya, who incidentally is an incarnation of forearm Lord Narayan, he kind of scratches his head when he heard that, and he says, Kimi dam matam amatam aho? Is that something wrong with that? I find a very subtle, kind of dry humor in that beautiful comment. And then the devotee begins to explain. He says, if the Lord likes, he can assume a forearm form. But his original form has two arms. The Shastra says, Narakriti Param Brahma. That the original form of the Lord is like a human being, Nara. Right? And again, it said, Gudam Param Brahma Manusha Lingam, right? That the Supreme Personality of Godhead has a very confidential form which resembles a human being. Again, Shastra says, he's quoting, Paramatma Nara Kriti, that the Supreme Lord, his original form, resembles a human being. And for this reason, Mahaprabhu has rejected this devotee. So then on the request of Advaitacharya, he went to Mahaprabhu and said, look, forearms are not that bad. Because Advaitacharya is Mahavishnu with forearms. He said, you should forgive him. So Mahaprabhu says, okay, because you asked me. And he puts his feet on the head of Mukund. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells him, he quotes a verse from the 10th canto, chapter 9 of the Bhagavatam, Nayam Sukapabhagavan Dehinam Gopika Sutta Gyaninam Chatmabhutanam Yata Bhakti Matamiha. That the Supreme Lord, Krishna, who is the son of Mother Yashoda, he's Gopika Sutta, he's the son of the gopis, and specifically Mother Yashoda. He's not accessible very easily, Sukapa. He's not easily attainable for persons who are in the bodily conception of life, or mental speculators. But this form of the Lord, his original form, he's the son of Mother Yashoda, and he has a wonderful, beautiful, simple form. So this is our question before us today. Okay, now we understand something about the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Don't worship a four-armed form of it. It's said in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that although Krishna Esa Rasastiti, it said there, that although Krishna and Narayan are abhina, they're non-different, still Krishna is superior, the original form of the Lord. So understanding this point, the question comes, why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu go to Brahmagiri Amarnath to have darshan of a four-armed form of the Lord? And why, when he went there, did he become even more ecstatic than when he was in Jagannath Puri? Now, when we speak about Puri, we often comment that there's a difference between these dhams, although Srila Prabhupada says these three places are non-different, Vrindavan, Mayapur, and Jagannath Puri, still there's some difference. And if we analyze the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can see that Mahaprabhu never melted the stone in Mayapur or in Vrindavan. But in Jagannath Puri, we know of 4 stones that Mahaprabhu melted. He melted his footprints in the stone next to the Garuda Stamba in the Jagannath Mandir. He melted 3 fingerprints. It's the second place he melted. First is a footprint, second is his fingerprints. He melted 3 fingerprints in that Garuda Stamba. And then within Sri Kshetra, when he went to the place known as Amarnath or Brahmagiri, he melted his entire body print, which is still there today. And the 4th stone that he melted was a Govardhan Shila, which was sent to him from Vrindavan. And in great ecstasy, he was rubbing that Shila, and his thumbprint appeared in that Govardhan Shila. So his ecstasies in Jagannath Puri are quite astonishing, because he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, in the 5th verse of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he describes Mahaprabhu as Radha Baba Dyuti Suvalitam, Nomi Krishna Swarupa. He's Krishna Swarup, but Radha Baba Dyuti, he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And in the mood of Radharani, as we were hearing in our last session, Radharani only wants to see Krishna. Even she tells her friends that, look, okay, everybody's telling me this Dwarkadish fellow, this emperor of Dwarka, he's really beautiful, and even they say he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but I don't care. I'm not interested in him. I want my Murlidhar Krishna. I want my Dvibhuj Muralidhar Krishna who's playing on a flute. That's all that I want. She's not attracted by any other form. So the understanding this, why does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu go every year to Brahmagiri? And it's a long discussion why the place is called Brahmagiri, why it's called Alarnath, why it's spelled Alarnath in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You'll have to read the magazine. It's a big subject. I don't want to go in that direction today, along with many other interesting stories about the place. When Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, according to Shri Das Thakur and Chaitanya Mangal, he was going 3 times a day to have darshan of Lord Jagannath. But every year after the Snan Yatra, Lord Jagannath goes into a lockdown. There's a pandemic, it seems like he's sick, and he locks himself up for 15 days, and that period is called Anabasra. And no one can have darshan of Jagannath. And that's also a big topic which we spoke about elaborately in some recent classes. We won't go there today. But during that time, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, Anabasare Jagannath there na pana darshan, because he couldn't have darshan of Lord Jagannath, virahe, in separation, alalanatha kori lagham. He would go to the place known as Alarnath and have darshan of the Lord there. So, again, why does Chaitanya Mahaprabhu want to go to Alarnath? It's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Madhya-lila chapter 9, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna Hare Lakshmi Man, Gopikara Man Harite Nare Narayan, that Krishna, he attracts the mind of the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi. But on the other hand, if you try to flip the coin over, it doesn't work. Lord Narayan, Gopikara Man Harite Nare Narayan. Lord Narayan can't attract the minds of the gopis. So then why does Mahaprabhu go to have darshan of Alarnath? Kaviraj Goswami explains, Gopi bhave virahe prabhu vyakulahana alalanate gela prabhu sabare chadya. When he was feeling separation from Lord Jagannath, he was in Gopi bhav, Gopi bhave virahe. He felt the same anxiety that the gopis felt in separation from Krishna. So in that condition, he gave up all his association and he went to Alarnath. All right, that's one answer. But personally, I'm not satisfied with that answer. And let me explain to you why. Even though Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says this in Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'm not fully satisfied with that answer because there are many deities of Krishna within Sri Kshetra. And I'm not talking about Lord Narayan. There are 2 armed forms of Krishna with the flute. There's a deity Radha Damodar, who is worshipped by Sut Damodar Goswami, Mahaprabhu's intimate associate. There are the deities of Radha Madan Mohan, near to the ocean, not far from Haridas Thakur's Samadhi, which are worshipped by Raghunath Das Goswami. There's the deities of Krishna Balana, who are worshipped by Kunja Bhagavan and Chota Haridas. There are the deities of Radha Giridhari, who are worshipped by Jagadananda Pandit. There's the deities of Tota Gopinath, who are worshipped by Gadadhar Pandit. There's Sakshi Gopal, who's not far away, who's also Krishna with a flute, who Mahaprabhu worshipped. So why he could have gone to any of those places to see any of those deities. Why did he go to Alarnath? Now you may say because Lord Alarnath is Bhagavan, he's Narayan, but that's not satisfying because Mahaprabhu is in the mood of the gopis and Radharani. And Mahaprabhu, we just heard in the beginning, he was going to reject Mukunda because Mukunda, what was his offense at Vaitacharya? What did he do? Well, he was attracted to the four-armed form of Lord Narayan. That's an offense? Yes, that's a big offense. You shouldn't have ruchi for that. Mahaprabhu is in the mood of the gopis and Radharani. So why is he going there? I did some research on this, and I found some very interesting things. First of all, on the 1st of January, 1996, our revered spiritual master went to Alarnath. It was one of the last public programs that he did, because the Bhubaneswar devotees, ISKCON devotees, had done some service for the Amarnath temple on behalf of Srila Prabhupada's centennial. It was Prabhupada's centennial year. And they built a new kitchen for Amarnath, and they built a kirtan mandap, which is right in front of the stone that Mahaprabhu melted. And so to inaugurate that, Guru Maharaj went there. While he was there, he told a very interesting story, which we're going to come to in a minute. Now, when I was doing research on this, I found, the more that I found, the more mysterious it seemed, more incongruous it seemed. I spoke to some of our friends, or so-called friends, like Sudhakar Swar at Brahmagiri Alanath. He's one of the priests there. He offers boga to Lord Alanath. And I spoke to them about the mantras that they use to worship Lord Alanath. Because according to the particular deity, he's going to have a particular mantra. A common mantra for Lord Narayan is Namo Narayanaya Namaha. That's a common mula mantra without giving the beej mantra for it, which is used to worship Lord Narayan. But I found out that in the case of Almanath's worship, they use two mantras, which I'm going to speak. Put your fingers in your ears because you're not allowed to hear this Gayatri mantra like this, but we won't tell the beej mantra for it, so you're not actually going to get it. You can't give it this initiation to anybody on a pioneer. Okay? So the mantra, the first mantra that they told me is this. Krishna Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Namo Narayanaya Alalanataya Naivedya Swaha. That's the Naivedya mantra that they use to offer boga to Lord Alanath. Okay, now it says Namo Narayanaya there. But it also addresses him as Krishna Gopi Jana Vallabhaya, as Krishna, the beloved of the gopis. And I found out the other main mantra they use for worshiping the Lord when they offer artik and different things, that mantra without the beej, is Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Vidmahe, Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Dhimahi, Tamna Krishna Prachodayat. So that mantra doesn't even say anything about Lord Narayan. It purely speaks about Krishna as Gopi Jana Vallabhaya, the lover of the gopis. How is he the lover of the gopis? He's got 4 arms. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to reject Mukunda because he has some attachment to someone who's worshiping with 4 arms. So when our Guru Maharaj went to this place on January 1st, 1996, I don't remember what I was doing. Usually I would try to accompany Guru Maharaj wherever he was, but somehow on that day I wasn't there. Later on, when I was doing research and trying to understand why was Mahaprabhu going to see Alanath, and I asked, doing my research, I wasn't lazy. I looked through all the different biographies of Mahaprabhu. I spoke to all the prominent sadhus and scholars in Jagannath Puri, and I asked them this question, and they just looked at me, and they said, that's a good question. I don't know. Nobody had a proper answer. Until finally I spoke to one of my Gavadas and said, you know, Guru Maharaj gave an answer on January 1st, 1996, when he was there to inaugurate the construction we had done there, ISKCON had done, for Srila Prabhupada's centennial. He told a story which had been earlier told by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And so I wanted to include that story in our magazine. And we were doing so much research and so much work, but I couldn't find a source for the story. Now, I've been trained by different scholarly Vaishnavas, including our Guru Maharaj, including my Siksha Gurus, that it's not enough just to quote your Guru. You have to quote Shastra, you have to quote some authority. And I couldn't find any other answer, any other place where this story was found. So finally, I didn't feel very comfortable. I thought, anyway, we're just going to have to say that Guru Maharaj said it because it's the only answer to this question, why Mahaprabhu was going to see this deity of Alanath, and why he became more ecstatic when he saw this 4-armed deity of Lord Narayan. And then the night, literally, we'd finished everything, finished the layout, we were getting ready to go to press, and our dear associate, Pradyumna Pradosh Prabhu, came running in to see me that night. And he had a book in his hand, a big fat audio book. which is, it's called, the title is Prabhupada Srila Saraswati Thakur. It's an Oriya book written by, it's a biography of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, written by one of his Oriya disciples, whose name was Nityananda Das, one of my heroes actually. Nityananda Das was, I'll just glorify Nityananda Das for one moment. He's so special. He was very senior, and he was offered the position of Acharya after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had left within their mutt, and he refused. Instead, he offered that position to another senior Vaishnava because he didn't want to have the prestige. And instead, he just did Grantha Seva for his whole life, and he printed many, many books. Wonderful, very humble, simple devotee. Anyway, in that book, on page 212, if you happen to have a copy of that audio book, I'm really interested, it's on page 212, he tells this story. Okay, now, this is a story which is found in Ujjvala Mani. This is a story which is alluded to, I believe, in the Bhagavatam. This is a story which is found in Bhakti Ratnakara, and a few other, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's also told there, a number of different literatures. That maybe it begins at the Rasa-līlā, at Vamsivat. Shriman Rasa Dasarambi Vamsivata Tata Sita Karsham Venisvana Gopir Gopinata Shri Srinaha. That Krishna one night decided to play his flute and call the gopis of Vrindavan. And so they all went running there, and they were doing a rāsa-līlā, everything was going really good. And then Radharani became annoyed, and she left. One of Radharani's names is Rasa Bihar. She's the heroine of the rāsa-līlā. If there's no Radharani, there ain't no rāsa-līlā. Krishna is not interested. And so he left. Why was Radharani unhappy? It's a long explanation, but to get to the quick, because she felt this is like kitchery. This is like kitchery is something you just take whatever you got in the kitchen and just throw it into the pot. Mm-hmm. This has the Munichari gopis, the Rishichari gopis, some Macha gopis, and all types of different gopis who are here, and it's not giving Krishna the pure rasa, the pure taste that he should have. And so they had a second rasa. At a place known as Chandra Sarovara, one of our favorite places in Braj, we gave an elaborate katha there a couple of years ago for the Govardhan retreat. It's right near Govardhan. It's a long story about the Chandra Sarovara. But anyway, they did another rāsa-līlā there, which is only the Astasakis and the Astamanjars. It was the cream, best of the gopis. And while Krishna was there doing that rāsa-līlā, he decided he would leave the rāsa-līlā. Previously, Radharani left. But in this rāsa-līlā, Krishna decided he would leave. And so he disappeared and went away. And the gopis, it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, that they became like an army searching for Krishna, marching. Where is he at? Where is he at? Is he here? Is he there? And at that time, Krishna thought, this is a good chance. I'm going to play a joke on the gopis, because Krishna has a good sense of humor. His sense of humor is very sophisticated. This is told in Ujjvala Mani in chapter 5, text 610. Rupa Goswami writes, at that time, Bhuja tutustayam papi naramana darshanayapi brindaneshwari premna dvija bhuja kriyate hari. That Krishna decided he would play a joke on the gopis. And so he manifested a four-armed form of Lord Narayan. Guru Maharaj, when he tells the story sometimes, he says that the gopis, they saw Krishna from a distance hiding in the bushes, and they became very excited. They said, there's the son of Nanda Maharaj, it's him. And they all went running there, and then they saw somebody with four arms. They stopped and said, oh, it's not Krishna, it's just God. And then the gopis, because that's what you're supposed to do when you meet God, you're supposed to offer prayers. And the gopis didn't offer prayers to Krishna, but they offered prayers to Lord Narayan. They said, dear God, can you tell us where Krishna is? We want Krishna. Because they're not interested. Their focus is one point, vyavasyatmika buddhi. But it's said that when Srimati Radharani came, Krishna thought, this is a really good joke. I'm going to do the same thing to Radharani. I'm going to manifest this four-arm form that's going to be a really good laugh. And so when Radharani came there, Rupa Goswami says, Vrindavaneshwari premna, by the love of Srimati Radharani, dvibhuja kriyate hari, two of those arms disappeared. And Krishna manifested his form as Dvibhuj Murlidhar, two-handed Krishna. Because Srimati Radharani is more powerful than Krishna. By dint of her love for Krishna, she's more powerful. And as we mentioned, this pastime is described in Bhakti Ratnaka by Narahari Chakravarti Thakur. It tells basically the same thing. I won't go into it so much, but he mentions a little detail there. Deka paita nami gram ati susorusapita. Paita nama hoila daichi kahiri kinchita. That just near to this place, Chandra Sarovara, it's actually a few kilometers away. We went there by bus from there, but Krishna and the gopis, they were a lot taller than us, so they're like about 8 feet high in Dwapara Yuga. Another explanation is given by Prema Vilas by Nityananda Das that Vrindavan is like a lotus flower, and sometimes the petals are open, and other times they close. And when the divine couple or the gopis, they want to go someplace in a hurry, then it closes. So the petals are touching each other, and they can just hop over it real quick. And other times it's open. So anyway, there's this village named Paita, and that's the place where Krishna once hid himself from the gopis. And there's a deity there, four-armed deity, Lord Narayan. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in his last visit to Brahmagiri Alanath, he spoke some amazing things. And he said that Jagannath Puri is Vipralambha-Kshetra. It's a place of separation. And Alanath, or Brahmagiri, is Dvigunita Vipralambha-Kshetra, the place of twice as much separation, because that's where Mahaprabhu goes when he can't have darshan of Lord Jagannath. He's there in Puri because that's the place of separation. But when he can't have darshan of Lord Jagannath even, he's feeling twice as much separation, so then he goes to Brahmagiri Alanath. But why? And why does he become so ecstatic in front of that deity? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explains. Because actually this Alanath Brahmagiri is non-different from Paita. And Paita is that place near to Chandra Sarovara where Krishna manifested this four-armed form, and he was defeated by Radharani, and two of the arms went away, and then he manifested his Dvibhuj form of Murlidhar, Krishna, Gopinath. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said in the same way, actually, Alanath is really Dvibhuj Murlidhar, Krishna. He's really Gopinath. And this is supported. The proof is the mantras that they use to worship Lord Alanath. They use Gopi Jana Vallabhaya mantra. They don't just worship him as Krishna, they worship him as Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Krishna. And he said that this place is non-different from Paita by Govardhan. Brahmagiri is there, which is like Govardhan, and that's little ways away from Vrindavan. And just as at Paita, the Lord manifested a four-armed form, similarly at Brahmagiri Alanath, Krishna manifested a four-armed form, but just as at Paita, when Srimati Radharani came there, two of those arms went away. It's described by Vrindavan Das Thakur and Chaitanya Bhagavat. Jai Rupa Chinche Dasi Se Rupa Hoy. According to the mood the devotee has, the Lord manifests a corresponding form. Krishna was unable to keep his four-armed form of Lord Narayan before Srimati Radharani because her love is so intense. She only wants to see Krishna in that way. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Bhava Dhyuti Suvalitam. He's in the mood of Radha. And so when he came before that deity of Alanath, who's actually Gopinath, who actually has two arms, two of those arms disappeared before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's explanation, which I very much later explained. Two of those arms disappeared. And seeing that Mahaprabhu, who's in the mood of Radha, became so ecstatic, he began to roll on the ground. And if you've seen that stone where Mahaprabhu melted, it's not like a form of a person. There's a hole where his hip was, there's a hole where his shoulder was, there's a hole for the elbow, there's a hole for the head, because he was rolling on the ground in front of Lord Alanath. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that Alanath is not different from Gopinath. And because of that, when he installed deities at that place, he named them Sri Sri Gopi Gopinath. And on his last visit to Alanath, in his lecture, quoting to Nityananda Das in his book we're quoting, He said that the followers of Gaurasundar, who is Radha Baba Duti Suvalita, who has a mood and complexion of Radharani, they can't serve Krishna with people who are on other paths. They can't serve people on other paths. If you're on the path of worshiping Lord Narayan, on the path of worshiping Lord Ramachandra, that's all right. You can go and do that. But we want to worship Krishna's Gopinath. The gopis want to worship Krishna in that way. They see Krishna in that way. And therefore, they see sometimes Mother Yashoda. They help to cook for Krishna. But they don't hang out intimately with Mother Yashoda or the cowherd boys because they have a particular form of Krishna. That form of Krishna is Vrindavan Krishna, but he's a little different from the Yashoda Nandan Krishna. He's a little different from the Krishna that worshipped by the cowherd boys, because Krishna manifests a particular mood before them, just like you do. Anapayani Radha is here. And if she's hanging out with her friends, some intimate friends, maybe they're reading Lalita Madhav. She told us recently they were reading Lalita Madhav, and she's speaking about that. But if she goes to see her teacher in school, she's the same Anapayani Radha, but she doesn't speak to them about Lalita Madhav. If she goes and visits her grandmother, then her grandmother starts talking about how much her cat eats and how the cat eats more than Anapayani does. Then she doesn't speak, but she's the same Anapayani. It's the same Krishna, but he manifests a little differently to different devotees because of their one-pointed nature. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he goes on, he says, therefore, they can't serve Krishna with people who are on other paths. Krishna manifested his four-handed form as Narayan at Brahmagiri, which is non-different from Govardhan Giri. The general people worship Alarnath as Alwarnath, the Lord of the Alwars, Narayan. But Mahaprabhu's followers, who are Rupanugas, followers of Srila Rupa Goswami, who's Rupa Manjari, see him as Dvibhuj Murlidhar, two-handed Krishna with the flute. The general people cannot understand this. This is why we have established Gopinath here. And I want to finish our discussion at this point, but I'd like to add a little thing else to this. Alarnath is the platform from which Mahaprabhu began his preaching. That was when he went to preach in South India. He left Puri. He left not just a physical place, but the certain mood that's going on there in the Gambhira, and he went to the place of Brahmagiri, which is a place of Gopinath, but also the place of Lord Narayan, depending on your perspective. And it was from there that he began his preaching. And it was there on the 19th of May, 1934, on his last visit to Alarnath, the Srila Bhaktisiddhanta went there and he made a prophetic statement, which I don't think anybody could understand. And this statement we found in the Paramarthik magazine, an issue which had been published in 1976, some years after this had happened. In Ariya magazine, one of our assistants, when we were doing research, found this thing. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he said there, Akashayana Bhimana Ratare Shri Jagannath Devanku, he spoke in Oriya language, Devanku, Istabana Landananku Neba Kuheba Setare Alalanata Heba Gaudiyanata Ogopinata Prakata Hebi Sarvata Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhunka Archa Prakata Koribaku Heba Nachet Manusha Jatira Mangala Heba Nahin. Okay, he told everybody at that time, remember, this is the place where Mahaprabhu begins his preaching. This is the place when he returned from South India, the devotees went there to see him, to greet him. This is the platform of his preaching. This is the last limit, one of the borders of Jagannath Puri, and the feelings that Mahaprabhu was experiencing there. So translation, he said, we must take Lord Jagannath in an airplane chariot to Eastbourne, London. There, Alarnath, Gaudiyanath, who's Gaudiyanath? Gaudiyanath is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There, Alarnath, Gaudiyanath, and Gopinath will appear. We must install the deity of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu everywhere in the world, otherwise there'll be no auspiciousness for the human race. Now, some years ago, what was the name of the Mataji Prabhupada's disciple when we went to London for the first time, Krishna Prem? She came to speak to me. She read this magazine. She's, what's his name? It always is a kirtan, a little bit short. He's in love with food for life. There's a prasadam distribution. Parshuram Prabhu. Parshuram Prabhu's wife. Moksha Lakshmi. Thank you. So we went to London, and Moksha Lakshmi Mataji came to me with a copy of our magazine, this magazine in her hand. She said, I want to tell you something. She said, we just put on a Ratha Yatra in Eastbourne for the first time, and we brought Jagannath there. It really, really touched my heart that she would say that. So what is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta saying? We must take Lord Jagannath in an airplane chariot to Eastbourne. And he says Eastbourne, London. Eastbourne and London, not exactly the same. But anyway, there, Alarnath, Gaudiyanath, and Gopinath will appear. We must install the deity of Mahaprabhu everywhere in the world. So many devotees were there listening to him. He must have been like, okay, Guru Maharaj, right, sure. We're going to take Jagannath in an airplane. We're going to go to London. Well, who knows what they were thinking? But at that place, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made that prophetic statement. And who was it that fulfilled that statement? That was in 1934, the 19th of May.
Here are some details.
Go away. Okay, excuse me. It was our Srila Prabhupada who went in an airplane chariot into America, and he took the deity of Lord Jagannath to so many places, including London, including San Francisco, and he manifested the deities of Gopinath and Mahaprabhu everywhere, all over the world. So this is a very prophetic place, a very prophetic pastime. The reason we're telling this story again is to illustrate how it is that this verse is described in Madguna Shruti Matrena, Mayi Sarva Guhase, Mano Gatira Vichina. Mano Gatira Vichina means ultimately Radharani in the gopis. It means when the mind becomes one-pointed and is continuously going to Krishna, Yata Gandam Baso Buddha, just like the Ganga goes to the ocean. And even you may present to them Lord Narayan, but the gopis, they just say, Dandavats Lord Narayan. We offer our obeisance and say, dear God, where's Krishna? We don't want God, we want Krishna. And so this verse indirectly indicates this. So we're going to have one more session on this verse, these two verses. And that'll be on Sunday coming up, and then we're going to, our next session will be on Wednesday, which will be about Radhashtam and Radharani. But on Sunday, we're going to speak something now about, okay, this is all really nice, but what has it got to do with me? What is the connection of all this with me? It's just so high and so inconceivable and far out, and it's very entertaining, but what has it got to do with me? So we'll stop there. We went really over time. I'm sorry. If anybody has any reflections, or I'd like to know what the devotees are walking away with, Hare Krishna Raghava Pandit Prabhu Jai Gurudev. And this is Gurudev's Katha. Aradhika Radha in Vrindavan. She's a Brijbasi who likes to do kirtan there. She's asked the question, can one develop a loving sentiment toward Krishna without sadhu sangha? Is there any example in Shastra? I don't know of any examples in Shastra. Well, I know of one example that our Guru Maharaj gave of a group of devotees who developed love toward Krishna without sadhu sangha. And that's the gopis of Vrindavan. And Guru Maharaj said, but they also did sadhu sangha. And what was the sadhu sangha they did? They associated with Krishna. That was their sadhu sangha. So it's described in the Adi Purana, one of my favorite verses. Krishna tells Arjuna that, my favorite verses, but I can't remember. Yeah. Ye me bhakta jana parta, na me bhakta sate jana, mad bhaktanam chaye bhaktas te me bhakta tamamata. Someone who says he's my devotee is not my devotee. I won't accept it. But someone who's a devotee of my devotee, that's my real devotee. So we'll stop there. Anybody here have any reflections, such as Martha would share anything? Shampriya? Okay. Krishna Prabhu. That's what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says that Brahmagiri is the same as Govardhan Giri.
So my devil's advocate question is this.
Yeah, can you speak in the microphone? Because nobody's going to hear you otherwise. Yes.
My little devil's advocate question is this. So this one-pointed focus on Gopinath, specifically, if this is the reason why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Alanath, because Alanath is actually not Narayan, but he's Gopinath, with the gopīs, at the rāsa-līlā. Our total Gopinath is sitting on the Uttariya of the gopīs at the rāsa-līlā. Why did he have to go to Alanath for this?
Very, very good question. I was waiting for somebody to answer that question. So, what is the connection? There's a connection between Alanath and Lord Jagannath. What is that connection? The place is called Brahmagiri, or the hill of Lord Brahma, because previously there was a big hill there, but there's not now. But previously there was a big hill there in Satyayuga. And when Lord Brahma was instructed to establish a deity of Lord Jagannath, he went there and he thought, this is a big job, I don't know if I can do this. I have to do some meditation first. I have to pray to the Lord for some benediction to give me the strength. And so he sat down there doing his meditation at that hill, and therefore it became known as Brahmagiri. And then the Lord manifested before him as Alanath. That's the story of how that deity manifested there. During the Anavasya period, many people go to have darshan of Alanath because it's considered, that's the tradition, because Alanath is considered non-different from Jagannath. And therefore they have the same system of worship. The Pandits sometimes they exchange, they go back and forth between Alanath and Brahmagiri and Jagannath. And so that's what you do externally. But internally, there's another reason. Okay, stop laughing. Now, Anapayani Radha, do you have any reflections? You have something you want to share with us? Okay, there's Anapayani Radha.
Thank you so much. I was so happy to hear the story again, and the connection between Narayan and Jagannath Puri, and also Chandra Sarovara and Vraja. It was so beautiful, and for me it was very good to hear again about the sources, that the story from Ujjvala Nilamani about how gopīs are trying to search for Krishna in the soul Narayan, and also about it was interesting to hear about Nityananda Das, disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that you found this in that book of his biography. Biography of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. Thank you so much. It's really important to know the sources, and such a shame that I still didn't read this magazine, but I'm really eager to read it finally.
You haven't read it yet.
I will do it as soon as possible.
Can you read the book of Govardhan?
What's it called?
The audio is the biography of Bhaktisiddhanta.
Prabhupada Srila Saraswati Thakur is the name of that book. Yeah, such a thing. Okay, what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to show everybody's smiling face, and we're going to begin with Anapayani Radha. Here is Anapayani Radha. If anybody's really angry with her, that's what she looks like. You can find her on the street and beat her up. And now we're going to go to Sachitananda Prabhu. You can see him, he's going to have a question or a comment.
Yeah, but Mike is here anyway. Sure. Do you want to?
Giriraj.
It looks like Jack Giriraj.
Giriraj Krishna comes. Haribo. Okay, Sachitananda Prabhu. Just in my
It's anyway. You don't want. Okay. He doesn't want to. Okay.
Well, this is a reflection, but not as it's not a question, maybe a comment, maybe a little bit like a devil advocate and a devil's advocate. So you were mentioning about Mukunda at the beginning. Mukunda, that when he was not allowed to come, and Dvaita Acharya came and said, what is the offense that he committed? So now we offer all these different arguments. And someone can say, well, Lord Chaitanya, he can teach through him for his followers not to, go and listen from impersonalists or get a different taste. And then that's one way to see it. The other one, in regards to Lord Chaitanya, he, he's God himself, he's Krishna himself, he can do whatever he wants, he's Swarat, he's fully independent, and part of his pastime, he can do anything he wants. So he goes there, and then the deity, why to one sees Allah, and then, yeah, of course, as a research, as a questioning, burning question, why did he go there? Why? I'm sure there's many different explanations that you were giving. But the short one is just like, well, it's his pastime. He can do whatever he wants. Why not? And then, okay, maybe you can undo this. So,
Okay, so Krishna Kun, she said she was a little devil's advocate. And I guess Satyajit is the big devil. Krishna Kun's a little devil, he's the big devil. So why is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Mahabhadanyaya Avatar? We should ask that question. The implicit in your comment, which is a good comment, an important point, is, so what's wrong with worshiping Lord Narayan? I mean, don't we want people to worship God? And even if they're worshiping the God of the Bible or the God of the Quran, isn't that better than nothing? Prabhupada said it was. But in our movement, we're the Krishna consciousness, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, not Narayan consciousness, not Ramachandra consciousness. Why is that? Is it just because Prabhupada's fanatical? No, because Prabhupada is a follower of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's Mahabhadanyaya Avatar. Why? Because he's giving us Unnata Ujjvala Rasa Bhakti Shriyam. He's giving this gopi bhav. And if someone's really a follower of Mahaprabhu, if they really want to get the Mahabhadanyaya, the great mercy that he's got, it means you're going to become a follower of the gopis. And therefore we sing Kunja Yunarati Keli Siddha. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to do that. Some people will become maybe cowherd boys. Some people might become monkeys and worshiping Lord Ramachandra because they like bananas and whatever. Some people may follow different forms of the Lord. That's okay. There's no problem with that. We're very happy with that. But if you want to get the great mercy of Mahaprabhu, it's this thing. And therefore, this is what Rupa Goswami is speaking about. And that's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta is saying for the Rupa Nugas. Because Rupa Goswami is Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishta. He understands that the inner mind of Mahaprabhu, Sapitami Bhutale, he established that. That inner mood was to give this gopi bhav. And by doing that, repaying his debt to the gopis. Anapani Radha.
It's not directly connected with the class, but it's connected with what you said about this verse in Akita Charim Charat. So you said it indicated gopi's mood. But also we were speaking with its manjari's mood. So can you kind of explain?
Were you asking what's the difference between
No,
that?
because sometimes somebody says it indicates gopi's mood, sometimes it says, but it's different.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's not such a, we had this big thing that manjaris. Manjaris are gopis. And manjari bhav means gopi bhav. It's really the same thing. But within the gopis, there's different groups of gopis. And the manjaris are a particular group of gopis, some of whom are followers of Rupa Manjari, some of whom are followers of Tulsi Manjari, and different leaders, different leading manjaris, who in turn are followers of Lalita, Vishaka, this gopi or that gopi. The difference between the manjaris and the gopis is that the manjaris are doing very intimate service that even the gopis can't do, because the gopis are a little older. And just as a girl might feel more comfortable, an 18-year-old girl who has a boyfriend might feel more comfortable speaking with her little sister who's 12 years old about her intimate dealings with her boyfriend than she would with her own friends, because her friends will start teasing her and saying things. So the manjaris are like that little sister in a sense. Of course, your sister is maybe someone that's not a good example. You also wouldn't want to tell your sister. And in this particular verse, this Anarpita Chiram Chirat verse, it said, Unnata Ujjvala Bhakti Swabhakti Rasa Shriyam. The Shriya, or the essence of this gopi bhav. And the essence of that is, the condensed form of that is this manjari bhav. And that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has particularly come to taste and give. Okay, so we're going to stop there. It's really late. And we'll be back again on Sunday. And then coming up on next Wednesday, we're going to have our Radharani Katha. But this Sunday, we'd like to speak about, now, what has all this got to do with me? And how is this practical for me? That's our next topic. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpa Darubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Vyeva Cha, Patitanam